Hello, this is Jam Master Daniel 96, and in today's video, I'll be reviewing Star Wars Resistance Season 2, and let's begin. Well, I'm not going to be reviewing all the episodes in the review, it's just going to be like a rundown of what happened in the season kind of thing, then give you my thoughts and all that, and let's begin. Well, Star Wars Resistance Season 2 takes place right after Season 1, and as we know at the end of the Season 1 finale, the Colossus leaves Castellon, and then Tam and Rucklin join the First Order, and then that's what gets carried into this season. We get to see them travel around the Colossus in this season, so we get to go to more planets in Season 2 compared to Season 1, as where in Season 1 of Resistance, we barely got to have some travels. I mean, there were bits. Maybe about a few episodes with Kaz and Poe had a few where they traveled in a few episodes, and that was about it. But mostly in Season 1, it was more on Castellon. As we're in this season, we get to see them travel more in this, which kind of parallels a bit with Rebels in a way. How in Season 1 of Rebels, it took place more on Lothal, and then they traveled in a few bits in Season 1. And that's kind of what Resistance Season 1 had, and then kind of as Rebels later seasons, they traveled more. And then Season 4 was, in Rebels, was back on Lothal. But in Season 2, we get to see them travel the galaxy more, go to newer planets and all that. And then in the series, in the season finale, that in the recent episode, they go back to Castellon to meet up with Tam, because in this, and I think the big highlight of this season is getting to see more Tam in the First Order, and then which I thought was the biggest kind of highlight um of this season. And then you kind of have the bit where Kaz, in the beginning, he kind of wants to reach out to Tam and then tell her he wants to talk to her, and then kind of in the beginning, you get to see more Tam to be more loyal to the First Order, and then once you get to the season finale, she kind of realizes she made a mistake, and then as season one, in the season 2 finale, she betrays the First Order and stuff. And then you kind of have the guy Rucklin, who is from one of the episodes in season 1, from that one racing episode, and he was in a few others. He's also joining the First Order, the blonde guy. I mean, I felt he was a kind of a bit of a jerk, and pretty much he's the one that wants to be more loyal to the First Order, and then he was sort of that guy that's a bit of a jerk. And as you got to see more of him with it, you saw him a bit more of a jerk. And then I felt in this one, in the finale, he kind of bites the dust in this one, is where they pretty much take out that First Order Star Destroyer in the end. Captain Phasma barely makes an appearance in this. I mean, because pretty much she even barely made an appearance in the first season. I mean, she was as underused as she was in Force Awakens and Last Jedi. That's pretty much how Phasma was. She's pretty much an underused character in this series. I mean, pretty much her novel is probably the best you're going to get out of her. I mean, that's probably about the best you're going to get out of her, but pretty much, because this, takes place, because in the first season, it's about 6 months to during the events of The Force Awakens, and this one is kind of during the events of The Last Jedi to a bit afterwards. So, because, in with Phasma, I mean, she pretty much dies in The Last Jedi, and then we kind of get to see, when we see the Kylo Ren hologram in season 2 finale, we see them say supremely the Ren. So that kind of gets you the idea that that leans to more post Last Jedi, pre-Rise of Skywalker. And there's one episode we get to see him go to Car, like they see the car, then they see kind of the aftermath of the battle from the beginning of the Last Jedi, so you kind of get to see more of that. So yeah, I would say this one, this season is pretty much like during the events of the Last Jedi to a bit afterwards, after the Last Jedi. I mean, you don't get to see it. I mean, because pretty much Phasma and Kylo Ren are the only sequel. Oh, and Hux are pretty much the only sequel trilogy characters from the movies you see in the show. I mean, because in season 1, all you got to see was from the movies were Poe, Leia, and Phasma. And then for the movie characters that make appearance in this one, as I said, it's Kylo Ren, Phasma, and Hux. I mean, there is no Rey, Finn, and Poe in this, or Rose. So we don't see them. I mean, we don't even see even like any of the newer characters from The Rise of Skywalker, like Allegiant Pride. So we don't get to see him in this. I mean, I don't know why, but that's probably he's off doing something else. And so that's pretty much that with with movie characters appearing in Resistance. Because I'd say as where season 1 started off slow and then ended off high, I'd say this season had a much more kind of consistent kind of pace. I felt like the season 2 finale was one of the best episodes of the series, one of the best episodes in the series. And actually, I do wish like this show got more seasons. Like, I don't know. I mean, I think maybe they planned it to have just 2 seasons. And I mean, I kind of do wish like this show like had maybe a few more seasons. I mean, it would have been awesome to like, I mean, since the sequel trilogy is done, they could have had a lot more connections with the trilogy, as where this one, the best way to describe the Resistance TV series as a whole is more like a side story in a way. It's more like, it's kind of like, as I said, like season 1 is like 6 months to during the events of The Force Awakens, and as this in season 2 is pretty much during The Last Jedi to a bit after The Last Jedi, so it's kind of like that. So it's almost like seeing the events of those 2 movies from someone else's perspective, where you kind of have our characters from the sequel trilogy, like our heroes like Rey, Finn, and Poe off doing their own thing during those movies, and then you kind of have the Resistance characters kind of doing their thing in the show, like doing, what they would do in the show. So it's kind of like that thing, like, then, so we have that, and I mean, we got to be introduced to Tora's mom in this, so we got to see that in season 2, and so that's pretty much it. I mean, you don't kind of get, as I'd say, connections to The Rise of Skywalker. Like, it doesn't, like, directly, like, the show doesn't really go, like, it doesn't really directly tie into the movie. I mean, it's just more like, kind of, just playing during the events as where it's existing within the universe, but, standing more on its own kind of thing is the best way to put it. And that's that. And pretty much, like, with this series, I feel like deserved a bit more to it. But hopefully, maybe we get to see a Resistance sequel series, like maybe like a kind of like a sequel to the series, like set after the events of the sequel trilogy. I thought would be maybe a good way to use these characters again, like for further adventures. And that's pretty much all I gotta say with Resistance Season 2 and my thoughts, all that, and then kind of gave you a little thoughts on the series and stuff. And that's pretty much all I gotta say. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment what you think down below, and I'll catch you guys next time.